In this episode, we're diving into 2 more one-page RPGs. These are ultra-light, rules-minimal TTRPGs that pack a ton of creativity into a single page. Let's chat about what makes these games unique, handling storytelling, mechanics, and world building in such a small package, and most importantly, are these even worth playing? Let's find out. This is Masters of Pen and Paper.
lead the way. New RPG systems every day. Dice roll, quick adventure calls. Walking through tabletops, golden halls. Masters of Pen and Paper. RPGs of every flavor. Talking about different creators. The choice of games is never greater. Come with us to games they run through. New, old, and interesting. Thank you all for listening.
Masters of Pen and Paper coming at you guys. You got Finney here with my main man.
DG, episode 16, and we're here once again with one-pagers. These are those ultra-light, super, easy, throw the page down in the table and say, let's go.
We had so much fun doing the last one that we did more. Why not?
Well, we did more.
Because
It's a blast.
They are. They're super cool. They're super short. They're super easy to get into. And they're just all sorts of fun.
And they're unique too. That's the other thing, is that it's not the same game kind of on repeat. In order to fit the rules onto a single page, you have to be incredibly creative. We got a couple pretty creative ones here tonight.
And I'm not gonna say they're free.
Super free. That is the other bonus. They're all super free. We'll put the links in the description for both these games. If you want to check them out, you simply just take a peek in there, and we'll do our best to make sure we get these in your hands as well.
Heck yeah.
I think we should kick it off. The first game is called
It Is Said.
It Is Said.
Yeah. What an ominous title.
So ominous. Yeah, absolutely. It's creepy.
I really liked the choice of title for this one.
Yeah, it is great. It's absolutely great.
This is written by Daniel B. No, he
Not
doesn't
Daniel
give his
A.
last name because, A was already taken and B is his. No, he's an English teacher from Lithuania, which we'll get into this because it's a huge
plays a
part
key role.
Huge part of this. He was inspired by games like Scorn and Mythic Bastionland, which, hey, we did an episode on one Chris McDowell that did Into the Odd, who also did Mythic Bastionland.
Mythic Bastionland was like his claim to fame. That was the game. That was the big one that he had put out, right?
Yeah. So then, and Scorn is somewhere along the lines of Merkborg, a dark, gritty RPG. With these one-page RPGs, it is really hard to lock down when they're released, how they're released, all these things, because they are a single page. Yeah,
there's no wiki page out there explaining anything. The best we can typically pull is if the author puts out like a blog post.
A blog post or Reddit post is like, this one is, I will say I grabbed this one off of Reddit because that's the only place I could find it.
That's where it is. And if you are Daniel B and you happen to be listening to this episode, let us know some info. And
that
throw
would be
it in
great.
The comments. I would love to be corrected on any of this. If we're going to mispronounce stuff in this game, just so you know. Get ready for that. Corrected. We're going to do the best we can.
So as far as I can tell, this was released in late January 2025, which at the time of this recording was not very long ago.
A couple months ago. It's relatively new.
And the game is based on Lithuanian folklore, and contains authentic creature names and all sorts of stuff like that.
Yeah, it's got that flavoring all up in it.
Yeah.
And he won an award for this game, right? There was a one-pager RPG contest thing. Not a contest, but like a con. It was submitted as part of one of those things.
It doesn't matter. It's award-winning.
It's award-winning. It is. This is an award-winning game.
It's an award-winning game. Can't say that about too many games we
That's
actually
right.
talk
That's
about
right.
here.
Exactly.
Into the nuts and bolts of the system here. We're doing a super, super duper simple D6 system.
That's right. Yeah.
Now, that's right. You heard me right. A D6 system. One
D6.
six-sided dice. So you go grab your Monopoly dice. There's two of them in there.
And then you
Bada
got
bing,
to back up.
bada boom. You got 2 players covered.
And I mean, the thing is, it's 1d6 because the game is so heavily story-based driven. Like, the intention of the game is to tell a story. It is designed that way. So the dice rolling is there. It's part of the game, but it's not the centerpiece of the game.
This game has so little dice rolling into it. Like I said, Monopoly has more dice rolling than this game.
Absolutely.
Just about.
Yeah.
Like, it's crazy. And it's one of the things I love about this game. This game, the kind of theme of this game is that you are a villager and you are lost in a forest and you're trying to find your way back to your village. And you are only armed with the folklore that you know and a unique piece of junk that may or not be useful that is pertaining to what you used to do as a job.
Yep.
Yeah.
You decide on what this is. So you decide what your job is.
Yeah.
And then
could
you
be
decide
anything.
what that item is. You
And
can
it can be
literally
anything.
have anything you want.
Yes.
Like the more crazy the job and the item, the better it's going to play off for you in the story.
That's right.
Long term.
It's crazy. This is meant for a group of 5 people, a GM and 4 players playing together around a table. Now, the GM, they create a secret map that only they get to look at, and give direction to the players. Now, this map is 15 dots arranged in a triangle. So you got 5 dots on the bottom, 4 dots, 3 dots in ascending order, up to
Making a little
one.
triangle on your
triangle. And then you erase 3 random and non-adjacent dots because we need to make paths between these connecting dots and connect them up. Now, then the GM marks a starting location, which is usually a corner, an edge, somewhere where they start, and an exit where the village is. And the only stipulation with this is that there has to be at least 5 pathways between dots to get to the village from your starting point.
I love the concept of building the map as like the preset up of the game. The beauty with this is that there's no like super campaign that you've got to come up with, right? You don't have to develop all of that. What you need to do is you essentially follow the same rules. So your game experience is going to be similar from game to game to game, but it won't be the same because the paths are always going to be changing. And then what you're doing is you're rolling dice on tables to determine what takes place. So it's randomizing and changing the game up every single time that you do this.
And it will it'll change dependent on what your players roll as their stories and what they do to get out of situations.
Exactly.
Because this is more of a back and forth between the GM and the players as to what's happening, a continuous group story that goes along here.
Yeah. And that's, you can see how the influence of the game is the storytelling. It is, you are telling a story while playing a game. You are not playing a game to tell the story kind of thing.
That's right. Getting into character. We create characters so you start off with 3 hope. Now, hope.
Hit points.
Hit points, yeah. You lose them all, you're dead. Or you're lost. You lost all hope. So you wander the forest and you're
never seen again.
Gone. Yeah. And then you re-roll a character, which is very simple. From here on out, you roll 3 stories. Now, you take a D6, you roll. There's the beginning, the it is said part of the table.
That roll
and then
the dice.
You roll the dice again, your D6, of course. And then on the other table, the but shows you what happens with the rest of your story. And now this is a folktale, and it has blanks in there that will be filled out as you play through and as it becomes relevant to your character, what's going on.
These are basically your attacks, quote, quote, right? Your attacks, your skill checks, your abilities, your insert item here. These stories are essentially how you're going to progress from where you're located to how do you get to your village. And the stories vary from different things, right? Just looking across the top, the story for number 1, it is said that a creature will help you, but you'll need a special item. And creature and special item are form fillable. So as you're playing the game, you come across creatures and you come across items, and that's how you tell the story.
Or that special item could be the thing that you have from
or the
your
thing you're
character
holding.
creation. Yeah,
correct.
And that's what's so crazy about this is stuff like that. It's open to interpretation as to what this special item is, because it doesn't matter what it is as long as the story works. And of course, sorry, that's it. That's all we have for.
I mean, that's it.
Creation.
That is. You've now created a character. You're ready to start making your way through the forest.
When you do something risky or uncertain, we roll our D6, and anything on a 3 or less is a success. Which so this becomes
we're talking 50-50.
They call it a 3 in 6 chance. Now, I would call this a D6 roll under system.
Yep.
Because that's what we're basically doing. Now,
you want to see a 1, 2, or 3. You do not want to see a 4, 5, and 6.
Exactly. Now, of course, the GM, dependent on the circumstances, can always make that easier or harder.
Of course,
Because otherwise, what's the point of having the GM?
Yeah, exactly. The GM's there to customize the story path as the players go through in order to make the best story, right?
Yes.
The players decide to do something incredibly risky. I see the river rapids flying down the stream ahead of me. They are 10 feet wide. The player goes, okay, I'm going to jump across. Okay, well, that's pretty darn risky, right? Like,
good luck.
The likelihood, it's possible you could make it. It is possible.
That is a 1 in 6 chance, buddy.
And so if you roll a 6, you roll a 1 is the only way that you're going to pass this kind of thing. That's the GM's kind of making those calls as things go on. But ultimately, the feats would be equivalent to that of ability checks, skill checks, etc., as stuff goes on. The player wants to do something, you make a feat check, and the story goes on accordingly.
It states in the rules, and further to the end here, that you don't have to always roll.
No. Sometimes if it just makes sense.
If it's a well thought out plan and it makes sense, just let it happen.
Yeah.
Because...
Rule of cool is important here.
That is system agnostic. Who cares about that?
Yep. The rules are only here to benefit the game, not to run the game. So, it's important. If the players decide to do something, it makes sense. You don't have to make the roll. You could make the roll. You don't have to. It's not important.
Exactly. Now, getting on to the rules. Whenever you wish to tell one of the stories that you had rolled in your character creation, you describe how you learned this story and fill in the missing parts. So, say we came up to along our path, we came up to a grass snake, say, and one of my stories was
the grass snake will help you, but you need
I will need
spade shovel.
Exactly. Okay. So back when I was, a wee lad, me grandma used to tell me stories about this green snake that would help me if I had this item with me, and showed it to them. And then there we go. Now,
here it is. Here's the spade shovel.
Now I have to roll to see if that was true or not.
Because it's still a game.
And it's a folk tale, because God knows they're never true.
It's possible that old Meemaw was not exactly being upfront and honest here.
That's right. So then we roll our D6, and of course 3 or under, and we pass. Now, once the truth or falsehood of a story is determined, you cannot change it.
Nope,
that story is told. That is how it is. Now, that story is done. Throw it out. Erase it off your character sheet. Well, as much of a character sheet as you have. and roll another one.
It's time for story number 2.
We always have to have 3 stories in our back pocket ready to go.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, because the intention with the stories is that when you come from point to point to point to point to point, stuff happens, and the stories are how you deal with the stuff happening. That's how you're going to progress, basically. That's right.
How we're resolving conflict.
Yeah, you're going to come up. You're going to come up through to some kind of obstacle or conflict of some kind, and the story is how you're going to get through it. The feat is the like safety net version. Nobody has a story to deal with this. We could take a risk here.
Nobody has a story about crossing a river. Ta-da.
So here we go. Now we got to do it. Now we got to think of how we're going to cross it, and then take a risk to do.
Now we got to skill check it. Yeah.
Yeah. So I mean, so you can see how the bits and pieces kind of start to fit together as you put that in, and honestly, from a GM point of view, like this is about 50% of the job. This is the heavy lifting of the job. The remainder is a lot of dice rolling and filling in blanks, right? Like,
yeah.
You're essentially the player start and the player end. You identify this, you draw the map, you get the players to create their stuff, and then you start playing the game.
Yeah. Ta-da.
And there it is. And I mean, you know, like we said, you know, the players have the ability essentially on their turn. So it's the players take a turn together, right? Like it's not I go, Finny goes, we split it all up. Like we're all going, but we're traveling as a group essentially, right? And so through the woods, we've got essentially 7 hours to get from starting point to the village. And every time we go between 2 clearings, it's a 30-minute period.
It's a 30-minute walk between clearings. Yeah,
that's right. So time tracking becomes a thing. That is now a GM job, is you are tracking the time on a little countdown timer from 7 hours to 0 hours. Because at 0, you're lost, game over.
Yeah, everybody's lost.
Everybody lost.
So
you're done.
The premise of the, and we should have stated this at the beginning, it's because you are lost and the sun is starting to set.
Yeah, you need to get home.
Once darkness descends upon the forest, you become completely lost. And that is it. So
you're taken by the forest. You're gone.
In 7 hours, the sun sets, and there you go off into the sunset. Or, you know, lost into the twilight.
Essentially, you trek from clearing to clearing, and along the way, you're going to... 2 things are going to happen. While you're traveling or hiking, there's a table that goes 1 to 6 of something that you might meet. You have a 2 in 6 odds of meeting a forest creature. Therefore, if you roll your dice, you essentially have an option of actually coming across something on a 1 or a 2. So you roll the d6 on a 1 or a 2. It's possible that you come across one of these things. You roll the d6 to determine what it is you come across. And these are things that range from and this is where the Lithuanian piece is in there, because the game was originally in, like, it was created in Lithuania, right? So it was translated into English. So they left a lot of the original Lithuanian names and stuff in there, and they said they did so to give the game unique flavor. But there's an FAQ on the Substack page, which is located at soupofthenight.substack.com, where it's got scratched out. It was like, because I was lazy, scratched out because it gives it flavor, right?
Yeah.
I was like, I like that. That's really cool.
Yeah.
And so you've got things like the Caucasus, which is a small, hairy, helpful house spirit, similar to that of like a gnome or a troll. There's the eight Varus, I think.
Yeah,
I don't know. I apologize. Right. I'm butchering it. But this is a flame-tailed rooster that's kind of like a phoenix, right? And so you got all these different creatures that you can come across while you're hiking, which is just, it's super cool. So those interactions are where you would, like, the story was going to take place. The creature that's in your story could be one of these things that you're coming across. On
a 6, you also roll on another d6 table that is abodes, and this is someone has been wandering away from their abode. Now this is everything, like we're talking a lame, which is like an aquatic woman that is like a siren almost, and she's wandering the
like
forest.
A mermaid.
Yeah, somehow wandering the forest away from her hovel. Now, part of the clearings, when you get to the clearings, you roll on a d6 to see what is there. Now, we can, on a 1 is an abode, and this is where this mermaid's house is now.
Yep.
So you have a chance to meet her another time, as well as an obstacle or an item or a signpost even that points the way home.
Right.
Which would be really helpful.
It'd be helpful. Well, kind of helpful because it points in the area.
It vaguely points.
It kind of gives you an idea what direction you need to go, but
not how to get there.
That could be difficult depending on how your path structure works.
That's right.
There's an item on here. So if you roll an item, there's also and they're all D6 tables, right?
Yeah.
So depending on what it is you hit, you roll, and then you get that. There's an item on here called the conclus, which is a 12-string instrument that is like a harp-like instrument, but its role in Lithuanian folklore is that similar to like a banjo, a fiddle, or bagpipes. And so, Daniel explains all this on his Substack page, which is super cool. There's a lot of really cool information that kind of gives the behind the scenes of how this stuff was created, and fills in some of those gaps that you might not know if you're not from Lithuania or you don't have a Lithuania background, right? And it's just really cool. Right. So you travel from clearing to clearing, you roll the dice, you see who you meet, you land at the next clearing, you roll the dice, you determine what's there, you roll the dice, that tells you what's actually there. You go back and you tell your story, and then when you're done your story, you move to the next one, you start the process again, you roll all the way through. Very cool concept.
Yeah.
Right.
Very cool. I forgot to say that any action that takes a fairly decent amount of time, like building a fire or anything, takes another half hour.
That's right.
Now, some of these things include like a witch. If she invites you into tea, I mean, it would be very rude to turn down the witch's tea offer.
That's right. Yep.
You might be turned into a newt for that. So
could get into trouble there.
So you might want to say, hey, yeah, I'll come in for a spot of tea, thanks, and waste a half hour of my daylight and try and get home, faster. But
because like sustaining any type of damage makes you lose 1 hope point, and you get 3 of them.
You only got 3.
You can restore them, but then you have to rest, which costs you some time. So, you're constantly balancing that, which is kind of cool.
Yeah, it's a give take, and it is 7 hours to travel 5 distances that's going to be tough.
Well, minimum 5, because depending if you make a wrong turn, you're going to have a bad time, right?
Yeah, because players don't get to see the map.
That's right. It's completely hidden from you, right?
Yeah.
And so, and Daniel says, at the end of the day, the game's designed to be that of a folktale, right? Like you're telling a story, an overarching story, right? And so the players who, and from Daniel's words, players who are virtuous, superstitious, or clever are the ones to be rewarded. And the point of the game is to tell the story, not so much to roll for randomness, right? It's actively encouraging you to always prioritize the player's rolled stories. So if you, as the GM, you have a decision, right? They come across the witch's hut and the witch needs an item. Well, the GM should be looking at the players and prioritizing their story list to ensure that the story continues that way, right? That is kind of the ruling for the GMs. It's important that you're constantly keeping that top of mind, right? So
yeah, we don't like dead ends.
No, you don't want to hit a dead end here.
Nothing says dead end like an item that you don't have.
That's right. A witch at the beginning saying you can't cross until you get this item, but you can't get that item. So now the game's over.
Yeah.
Right.
Womp.
Yeah. Game over, start over. So I don't know, Finn, like what is
that's about
what are you
it.
Thinking? That's it. Like it is said it is done. Yeah. What are you thinking on this one? Little game.
Very little game.
Packs a lot of punch for one page.
There is a ton ton of lore and world building in this little 2-column page.
Yeah.
I feel like this is one of those roll-light games that would be a lot of fun with the right kind of group.
Yeah.
You all have to be kind of invested in wanting to do the folk tales.
You need a group of bards here.
Yeah. I do like that it is not reliant on combat or heavy number crunching to get the point across.
Sure.
And instead pushes the narrative with words and slinging words, much as the bards do.
Yeah.
My least favorite thing, and unfortunately this is about all Rules-Lights, is that it can be very vague in spots.
Yeah.
Like
there's a lot on the DM to make a decision on how it works.
Yeah. Like, for instance, it says in the rule book or rule page, if you wander off the path, you're lost.
Yeah.
Well, how does that happen? Now,
that's right. Yeah.
That can of course be fixed by sitting down at the table before everybody starts playing, and we suss out these ambiguous rules right now. Like, hey, if you guys roll, and as you go across the path, if you guys roll a 6, hey, you wander off the path. Oops. Something like that. Or you get a 2 and you get to roll twice and see if both of them hit 6, then you were really lost. Yeah.
Totally.
Something like that. That's about my only gripe with this. Other than that, a very solid little game.
Yeah, absolutely. I agree. I absolutely agree with you. I had the exact same thing. We were talking about this yesterday when we were going through the page again here. And it does, like, it's the first line in hiking. It says, if you stray from the woodland path, you become lost, create a new character. But it doesn't explain what that actually means. And I had said to you, like, well, did we miss something? Does it say somewhere in here, like, you can't backtrack? Or, if you turn, like, it's basically saying to you that if you don't reach the village, you're lost and you're done. But the way it's worded, it makes you sound like you need to create a new character while the rest of the game is still going on. So
yeah,
I agree. It's got to be tough because you're trying to fit everything on one page. So you got to really be a pinpoint with what you're got on the page, as well as keeping it still artistic in a way that is presented. So it's not literally a 1-page wall of text kind of thing. Right?
Yeah. No, you have to definitely do the aesthetic for it and cut some of the fat off. Yeah, for sure.
And this one, I feel, has that look. Like when you pick it up and look at it, you're like, this just looks really good, right? I love the idea of it being based in Lithuanian folklore, right? Because it does give that certain uniqueness to it. I eat that up. I love that. I don't want the same game on repeat. I want something fresh, and so that it really does deliver in that way. I would agree with you. I think that this game requires a group to really work together on things in order to succeed, because you're all telling one big story. It's going to be tough with certain players. Some people are not going to be in for this because there's a lot of RP. There's a lot of storytelling that's involved here. It's not a lot of like crunchy combat stuff. And yeah, it's a fun game. I'd try it out.
Why not? I mean, I'm down for anything.
Absolutely. Yeah. I mean, we're pretty on board for most of these games.
That's right.
I think often to our group that we play RPGs with, and whether or not they'd be into it. I don't think our group would be too into this one, but it would be one. These one-pagers are so awesome because on a Friday night game night, you don't have enough people to play D&D or Pathfinder. Hey, I got a game for us to play. Let's try this out. And you're up and running literally in a short period of time.
Yeah, it's minutes very you're running. Yeah.
It's the way to go.
Yeah, that's it. That's all. On to number 2.
This next game came out of nowhere, right?
Yeah.
We were looking at another game and it said this game was inspired by this game, this game, this game, this game, and this game. And I was like, whoa, wait a second. I know 5 of these 6 games. I've never heard of this one here. And you were like, well, let's go and check it out. And we did. We went back and looked at it. The game is called Newtype.
Yeah.
And there's not a lot. We do not have a lot of information on this one.
This guy's impossible to pin down.
Yeah, so we tried to find more information about it. I don't even have an artist, or sorry, I don't even have a author name here.
No.
Because we stumbled across this ultralight. It seems that whoever it was that wrote it, they've deleted. It was posted on Reddit. They deleted their Reddit account, so there's no name there anymore. There's just the remnants of the post itself. And it kind of leads you into a circle between a blog called Inside the Giant's Eye and then this post on Reddit. So unfortunately, we can't provide a lot of credits here, and I apologize. If you're the person who wrote this game, let us know. I would love to actually credit you properly.
Yeah, and this, unfortunately, we couldn't even find a PDF version of it.
No, it's just a picture.
JPEG. Yeah, that's all I got.
It's still free, though.
It's
you can still
free.
Get it.
That's right.
But I mean, yeah, it's this one was a bit of a stretch, and I said to Finney I didn't want to skip it because some of the games literally reference this as inspiration for the creation of their game. So it's nice to be able to say, like, well, here we go, right?
I've heard this game tossed around a few times in my ventures through various blogs and Reddit posts and all sorts of forums. And I'm glad we actually found it and
absolutely
and are doing this. Now, what I can tell you is that this game takes a lot of inspiration from things like Gundam, the 8th MS Team, Evangelion, Gurren Lagann, mech games,
those anime mech things,
where they jump in their giant robot and they do battle. Heck yeah,
right. Yes. Yeah, exactly. And in the same league as the other games that we're talking about on this list, it's a simple one pager, right?
Single page. That's all we're
one
talking.
One page, nice and simple. So if you're into mechs, you're into Gundam, you're into that kind of thing. I mean, it's loosely based. Don't think this is not a Gundam RPG. This is just loosely based. It's a skeletal set of rules that you could really apply to anything.
This is a pilot and mech building game that has some fighting elements in it. Other than that, there's not much there.
It's light, so you can kind of do your own thing, which is really cool.
Is very cool. So into the nuts and bolts, Newtype has you create both a pilot and your mech.
Which is cool because this is similar to like Lasers and Feelings. We're creating the actual character and we're creating the mech. So in this case, it's kind of like a twofer. You get two technical character sheets, but they're all the same. It's all the same.
Exactly. Now, this is a very unique system as there is no set defined dice.
No, that's really there's a lot of uniqueness, and I can see why people throw this game around quite a bit.
Yeah.
But you as a table are going to decide what dice you're going to use.
Yeah.
Right. And the creator in the Reddit post, if you read through the comments, the creator was saying, the game probably works best with D20s. Just because those higher numbers make for a punchier game, but you could literally do this with D4s. You could do this with coin flips if you really wanted to.
Yeah,
right?
Exactly. Now, that being said, the creation process for your pilot is very, very unique. Like, we have never covered a character creation like this ever.
Never.
Not even the ballpark. So you don't roll any dice. You don't get any attribute modifiers. You don't get any numbers, so to say, to go with your character. You start out with 10 spirit, and then you get 3 words to describe your pilot.
Yep.
Now, those 3 words, you got either positives or negatives. If you give yourself a negative word to your character, like brash or
anxious, depressed,
strong-willed, something like that, you lose 1 spirit, but your mech gains an extra syllable.
Yeah, we'll get to that in a brief second here, but hold that in your thoughts for
hold
right now.
that thought. It's so cool because
it's a cool concept. Yeah.
You just come up with descriptors for your pilot, and there you go. You're off and running with your pilot. Now, that being said, they do provide some examples, such as wheelchair genius and handsome. Wheelchair being the negative, I think.
Yeah, well, because you're bound to a wheelchair, so you're not getting up and running around or anything like that.
So then that gives you 9 spirit.
But
as
11
well.
syllables.
But 11 syllables. Now, and then they have another one, anxious, depressed, wonderkind. It gives you 8 spirit, which gives you then 12 syllables to build your mech with. Now, that is a super cool way of balancing life.
That's right.
It's so cool.
Because you're choosing to basically reduce your HP to boost your mech's ability.
Everything.
Right?
Yeah.
And so, like, speaking of creating your mechs, you know, typically you would start the game with 10 syllables to design your mech. And what that means is you decide what your mech has from a point of view of health, defense, and offense modifications. Of course, as mentioned before with the character, if you take negative attributes, you gain additional syllables here. But for example, you could have something like a rocket launcher on your mech, and rocket launcher, that's 4 syllables. There you go.
Your rocket launcher does 4D worth of damage.
Exactly. And that's 4 syllables out of your 10 total syllables you get.
That's right.
You have 6 remaining to apply.
To do, hey, I want super duper plate armor.
Yep.
And
away you go.
There you go.
And so essentially you take those syllables, the amount of syllables you have, and you convert them. You get 1 dice per syllable that you have total. So it's at least 10. It could be more.
You can choose to put those dice that you gain from your syllables into your health pool. Now, if you put it into a health pool, it automatically rolls the maximum roll for that dice. So if you're using a D6, you get 6 health into your HP pool for your mech.
Yeah.
Now, this is where it gets crazy because you can put only 1 dice worth of pool into that.
You can do whatever you want.
You can do whatever you want. So you can have the glass cannon where, you know, you got 6 health, but gosh darn, you got a
literal armada.
An armada at your disposal. You are the heavy arms with
Yeah, exactly.
Right? It's really cool how that works.
It's a
together.
cool concept. Yeah. And so, like I mentioned, you know, you can have your offensive mods such as like rocket launcher being 4 dice worth of damage. Defense works the exact same way as offense does. So if you wanted thick plate armor, that's 4 dice worth of defense. And you can add adjectives. So the more adjectives that you use, the better the offense or defense. So the Ultra Heat Uniform Beam Saber is 8 dice worth of damage versus Beam Saber at 3 dice worth of damage, right? So you're balancing that out.
Because the Ultra Heat Uniform Beam Saber is way better because it's got a longer, awesomer name.
It's Ultra Heat. It's a uniform blade, right? It's an upgraded beam saber.
It's a huge upgrade.
Absolutely. So, and of course things are balanced here because the trade-off is you have a set number of dice. You still only get 10 or 11
you still
or 12
only
or whatever
get
it is.
so many syllables.
And so that can only be split so many ways between offense and defense. You have to balance this out.
That's right.
You're choosing to be offense focused, defense focused, balanced, right? However it is that you're going to line yourself up.
Yeah. The game is primarily focused on combat. At least the rules are, because
that's what it is.
That's what it is.
Which is really interesting because considering it is said was very story driven. This is literally the polar opposite.
The polar opposite. Yeah. Now that is not to say that you cannot, put in other RPG elements and make this into a more fleshed out personal game, right?
But I mean, that means that the effort's going to be on you. Don't look to these rules to assist you with that. If you're going to go down that route of like a campaign, so to speak, you're probably going to pull in rules from another game and smash them together here. Right? Similar to like what Pirate Borg did with the Borg rules and then the ship rules. Put them together in order to make it work.
Yeah, right? That's 100%. Initiative for combat is decided by the lowest number rolled based on the action that you have chosen to do. So attack with a weapon, you roll the weapon dice.
Yep.
And
so the rocket launcher, you roll all 4 dice.
You roll all 4 dice, you add them together, and the lowest number gets to go first.
On your turn, you can attack or you can do an action, right? And so attacking, you roll the weapons dice. Doing the action, you break whatever it is that you're doing into syllables, and then you roll that many dice, right? So if you're going to grapple them, that's 3 dice. Grapple them, right? And away you go from there, essentially, right? So I want to charge ahead. Okay, charge ahead. 3 dice, you roll them. When you roll those dice, whoever's got the 1, basically.
The lowest number goes first.
The lowest number goes first. So that action takes place, and then everything else kind of goes from there.
Now, damage gets compared to defense roll. So your defense roll, you roll your dice. Then it's a damage reduction. Now, so
think risk.
If you get shot with your rocket launcher and it does say 8 damage, and you've got plate armor that reduces, say you roll very well for 4 damage. All of a sudden 4 damage continues on through into your mech's HP pool. When that HP pool runs out, your mech breaks. When your mech breaks, any extra damage gets carried through to the pilot and they lose spirit. You can take a break, fix your mech, but that takes time, a lot of time. Like, you can't do that in combat time.
That's right. Yeah. You essentially would lose, but you'd come back again one day to fight another day.
Yes. Yeah.
The penalty for doing this is that now your pilot has a negative. So you're going to come back with a negative trait. But you still get your bonus syllable for your mech.
You do.
When you're going to recreate your mech. You're going to make a new one.
Fix them. You're going to make them better.
You're coming back with an extra syllable, but now you have to come up with a negative trait. Maybe you lost an arm. Maybe, like something. You've got some penalty.
A gruesome scar.
That's right. Yeah, exactly.
Now, if your pilot is ever reduced to 0 spirit, which, hey, that's very important to this. Your pilot is considered useless. Yeah, I liked the idea that they said they become useless, quote, quote, become useless. He gets Newtyped out, and then he becomes a vegetable.
Poof, off he goes.
Never to come back again.
So I thought that was a nice little touch. But I mean, this is the game's version of you're dead. Like, your character's done. Time to make a new character.
Roll up a new one. Yeah. That's about it for these rules. There's so few rules to hear, but
it's short, sweet, and simple. But I got to tell you, this is one of the most unique things that I've come across, right? Like, I love the simplicity of it. And then the character and mech creation is just so cool, because at first when you're reading it, you're like, wait a second. I can have anything that I want, literally anything I want. It's like, well, yeah, but you're still restricted by the syllables. So go ahead and give your character, the tactical nuke, right? It still only does that many syllables worth of damages, right?
Yeah, it's not a one-shot kill.
It's not a one-shot kill. So you have to decide, how do I split this up? And then it becomes, there's a lot of thought that ends up going into this, because you're like, well, wait a second, what kind of mech do I want to have? And so what that actually does is it gets the player significantly involved with both the pilot and the mech because you're literally envisioning this as you're creating it, right? I think that's just such a cool concept. It would be the perfect way to get somebody super involved with your game, right?
Yeah.
The downside is similar to the other ones that we've been talking about here is, it's a bit lacking for game content, right? We said this one is very combat focused. So if you wanted this to be an adventure of sorts, you're going to have a hard time. It lists some possible campaign themes, Gundam the 8th, Evangelion, all these other things that we've been talking about, but it doesn't say how to actually play them. So it's up to the players, right? And there isn't really a GM, so to speak here. This is kind of the way I looked at this was like be 1v1, like player versus player kind of thing.
That's what I get.
You could very easily turn this into a campaign where, like it's, me and you versus this horde of like enemy, the Zeons coming in and we need to clear them out kind of thing. There's multiple ways that you could do this because what you're given is the skeleton. And that's something that I like that. It's a little parboiled for campaign stuff, but I mean, there's a lot of potential here to do basically whatever you wanted with it.
It would take a lot of legwork for the GM to set up a campaign with this. I would be tempted to grab another existing game, do the campaign through that, and do character and combat creation this way.
Totally. Yeah, totally.
And then combat and everything through here. Yeah. I love the theme of this game.
This is a really cool one.
It is so cool. The character creation is one of the most unique we've ever come across here, and it is a breath of fresh air. It's a bit daunting if you don't have much of a vocabulary. Yep. Which I don't have very much of a vocabulary, but
that's fair.
I can't even say that word. So
right. I'd imagine the people around the table would all pitch in a little bit and help, right? Like
the fact that you don't need a large vocabulary to create a character is awesome. And it's so cool because it's the way of balancing it is, hey, my guy is handsome. He likes to drink and he farts a lot. Ta-da!
That's right. There you go. Boom.
Character.
There you go. I love the ability that you can make a weapon stronger by adding adjectives. So beam saber at 3 dice becomes 5 dice by adding purple beam saber. You know what I mean? Like it doesn't have to be anything crazy.
No.
It's just this is the purple beam saber. It does more damage.
It's way
it's purple.
better than your pink one. Yeah.
That's right. Exactly. Right. It's super unique. Absolutely.
The part about the negative attributes taken away from your health and giving it to the buffs of your mech that's such a brilliant way of balancing everything.
Yeah. Yeah, because it leads you down the path of eventually being dead.
Yeah. But your mech is there to protect you. So you make your mech beefier the more frail you are, right?
Yep.
Because I don't want to get shot through the heart with
that's right. The armor plating becomes thick armor plating, which becomes double thick, extra thick, right? Yeah, exactly.
Again, it will require the right group to play with. As with any of these, all of these ultralights require that group that has the mentality of wanting to sit down, learn a little system and play it, because you're not doing the investment of like a D&D or a Pathfinder where you're going to sit down and it's going to take you like a month and a half to learn all the rules, and even then you're going to miss 3/4 of them because they are one-off things that you never have to come up with. Oh, except for this time we are doing it now.
Exactly.
I would say that this would be a really fun game, even if it's you and some buddies, a case of beer, and you just want to do a couple hours of skirmishes between each other.
You just want to kick back, throw down. I mean, I see the building blocks of a miniature game here too.
Yeah.
Right? You could very easily turn this into a miniature game, right? 3D print some mechs. Yeah, away you go, and you've got yourself a pretty decent game here too. So
just dice on grid paper, run them around.
It's just dice.
Ta-da.
It doesn't have to be any particular dice.
No.
Oh, I don't have a lot of D20s. That's fine. Pull the D6s. Let's play with those. Like you can do anything you want.
Grab the Yahtzee. We're covered.
You bring your Yahtzee, I'll bring mine, and we'll play. We'll be good. It's cool. It's unique. I wish that we had an author for it because I'd like to credit it to the right person. So.
I would have liked to credit them, but unfortunately, no.
I see why folks talk about this game because it is unique. It's real smart.
I like it. We're gonna have to try it one time.
I do want to try this one. Yeah. Absolutely.
All right. That's it.
That's it. That's the end of Newtype. Nice and simple. I think it's time for us to roll into the post-pod. Post-pod. Every week it gets better. Every time it gets better. You
know what? That musician's gonna send us something. We're gonna say no.
Look, if he ever responds, I don't know. So.
Too bad he's not a fan of the show.
That's right. Yeah, if he was a fan of the show, he would have left a comment by now. That's what I've been saying. This episode's post-pod question, what is a minor rule that you always forget in every game that you play?
Oh, my goodness. Minor rule.
This one was rough. So... For me, the minor rule that I always forget in every single game has to be encumbrance. I am not ever thinking about encumbrance when I'm playing my character. I hoover up those items, I throw them in my bag, and away we go. The faster I can get a bag of holding, the better. Right? Because the last thing I want to be worrying about, and I'm the type of character that's like, look, unless the rules say I can't carry 14 spears, I'm carrying 14 spears. It doesn't say I can't. It doesn't say how I carry the 10-foot pole. It just says I'm allowed to carry it. That's right. The 10-foot pole goes on, right? It's oftentimes that I forget about those rules, and then it's usually a reminder from the DM who's like, wait a second, you can't have 14 spears. Yeah. You don't have that kind of a backpack. You need to have this. And I'm like, oh, right, of course. Yeah, okay, I get it, right? Those ones are minor for me. I really, the encumbrance and the coins are always the 1 and 2 for me.
Those are the first things out the window.
Carrying coins is like, I carry all my coins with me all the time because I never remember to put them anywhere else, right? It's just like, I love the concept of one day I'll explode into like just an obliteration of gold.
Goblin, just boom.
Like a fireworks worth of coins firing off.
Mine would be passive perception.
Oh, that's a great one. I always forget about my passive perception too.
To me, passive perception is completely useless. Why even bother having it on the page?
Yeah. I understand it, but I mean, it's so much more fun to call for a actual perception check.
It is.
I would rather, as a GM, call for a perception check, have you fail, and be like, oh, never mind.
Exactly. Not look at the character sheet and go, oh, you got a passive perception of 20. Well, I guess you get to see everything.
Yeah. That's one of my most favorite things, to throw that, oh, never mind. Because there doesn't even have to be anything there. It's just enough to drive the player nuts, right?
I will say that the difference between passive perception and active perception is passive perception, you notice that it is a candle-lit room. Active perception is you notice it is lit by 7 candles.
Exactly.
So that's the difference. For sure. And I get why it's there. It is one of the first things I forget to use as a DM.
Yeah, especially as a DM, because there's so much going on.
Passive perception is the least of my worries.
Absolutely. Some people, the thing is, if you swear by it, I get it. I understand how it can make life easier, because behind the screen, you can have the players written out with their passive perception, their HP, and all that kind of stuff. And you could have something happen, look at the passive perception, and just say, this is what happens, and move on. But there's just something about calling for that roll. It just feels right.
Yeah, it does. It feels nice making them roll and then saying, there's nothing there. Never mind.
You know what? Never mind.
You thought something caught your eye in the corner, but it turned out to be nothing.
You thought you saw something.
And then watch them investigate that corner.
Oh, yeah. They spend the next half of the session just staring at that, being like, well, obviously there's something here. You wouldn't have said something about it.
that gets into the metagaming part of, oh, he failed his perception roll. Can I roll perception? No, you can't.
No.
You cannot keep making perception rolls until you make it. That's not how this works.
Oh, I love it. That's so good.
That's it. That's all, my people.
Episode 16 in the bank. I want to thank each and every one of you for listening in for this podcast. We do this every couple of weeks. You can find a new episode here. We post it out to Spotify, to YouTube, and to Apple Podcasts, so you can find this anywhere on there. If you'd like to help us out and help get the word out about the show, that would be a super awesome helpful. Simply just tell your friends and family and let them know that we are here throwing information about TTRPGs on the regular. As well, you can find us through a myriad of different pathways. We stream D&D every single Sunday night on Twitch at twitch.tv/DGOnline. You can also find that same broadcast on YouTube at youtube.com/@DadGamingOnline. That's the same place you can find this podcast as well. And we have lots of different ways for you to get in touch with us.
You can get in touch with us at our Discord. We have a link in the description. Come check it out. You have to do a little bit of saying where you found us so that we can get you in there. You know, our bot filters pretty tight. Other than that, we got our email. Email is mastersofpenandpaper@gmail.com. Please send us any comments, questions, concerns, ideas, because games,
If you wrote Newtype, send us an email.
If you wrote Newtype, please let us know it was you, and we will rectify
we'll credit
that
you properly.
Yeah. Other than that, that's about it.
That's it. That's all. Another episode in the bank. Episode 17 will be the next one. Make sure to tune in for that. I want to thank each and every one of you one last time. Have yourselves a great one. We'll see you on the next one.
See you guys.